I never expected to find my grandfather's letter while cleaning out his study, but there it was, tucked away in a worn leather journal, waiting like a time bomb to upend my entire life. The envelope had my name written across it in his precise handwriting, for Cassidy Harper, to be opened upon my passing. My name is Cass, and until that moment, I thought I knew exactly who I was and where my life was headed. I was wrong. Mom, I called out, my voice echoing through the empty halls of my grandfather's mansion. Mom, I found something. The floorboards creaked as my mother's footsteps approached. She appeared in the doorway, still wearing her nurse's scrubs from her night shift, dark circles under her eyes. What is it, honey? My hands trembled as I held up the envelope. It's from Grandpa. She crossed the room and sat beside me on the dusty floor, surrounded by boxes of old business documents and family photos. Well, open it. I broke the seal and unfolded the letter, my grandfather's words jumping off the page. My dearest Cassidy, if you're reading this, I've passed on, leaving behind not just my legacy, but a challenge. You've always been special, different from the rest of the family. You remind me of myself at your age, ambitious, determined, but perhaps too eager to prove yourself to others rather than to yourself. I've set aside a substantial inheritance for you, but it won't come easily. To claim it, you must first prove your worth by achieving something remarkable on your own terms. No handouts, no family connections, just your own grit and determination. You have 1 year from today to build something meaningful. What that means is for you to decide. The details of your inheritance will be revealed only when you've shown you're ready for it. Remember, true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the strength of one's character. With love and faith in your potential. Grandfather. That sounds exactly like him, Mom said softly, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. Always testing, always pushing. But what does he mean by something meaningful? I asked, running my fingers over his signature. And how will anyone know if I've succeeded? Your grandfather never did anything without a plan, Mom replied, picking up a framed photo of him from a nearby box. He probably has someone watching, evaluating. I thought about my life, my small online boutique that was barely breaking even, my engagement to Ben from the prestigious Aldridge family, and how everyone assumed I'd just coast through life on his family's wealth and connections. Maybe that's why he did this, I said, realization dawning. He knew about Ben's family, about Victoria. Mom's expression hardened at the mention of my future mother-in-law. That woman has made it clear she thinks you're not good enough for her precious son. Perhaps your grandfather wanted to give you a chance to prove her wrong. Or prove something to myself, I murmured, standing up and walking to the window. The setting sun cast long shadows across my grandfather's immaculate garden, where he taught me about patience and persistence while tending to his prized roses. My phone buzzed, a text from Ben. Dinner at my parents' tonight. Mother insists. Don't be late this time. I stared at the message, then back at the letter in my hand. For the first time, I felt the weight of my grandfather's words settling into my bones. This wasn't just about an inheritance. It was about choosing who I wanted to be. I need to make some changes, I said, turning back to Mom. Big ones. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. Your grandfather always said that sometimes you need to lose your way to find your path. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it into my pocket. Whatever my grandfather's challenge meant, whatever something meaningful I needed to build. I knew one thing for certain. Victoria Aldridge was about to meet a very different Cassidy Harper. The Aldridge mansion always made me feel like I was walking into a museum, everything perfectly placed, untouchable, and cold. Tonight was no different, except I had my grandfather's letter burning a hole in my purse, giving me an odd sense of courage as I rang the doorbell. Victoria opened the door herself, perfectly coiffed as always. Cassidy, dear, you're actually on time for once. I bit back a retort, forcing a smile. Good evening, Victoria. The dining room was a study in old money, crystal chandelier, antique silverware, and enough tension to crack the fine china. Ben squeezed my hand under the table as Walter, his father, cleared his throat. So, Cassidy, Victoria began, delicately cutting into her salmon, I heard your little online shop is still. Operating. The way she said operating made it sound like a terminal illness. I straightened my spine, remembering my grandfather's words about proving myself. Actually, I'm expanding, I replied. I've been working on a new business plan. Oh, darling, Victoria interrupted, sharing a knowing look with Walter. Wouldn't it be better to focus on the wedding plans? After all, once you're married to Bennett, you won't need to worry about such things. Ben shifted uncomfortably beside me, but said nothing. Typical. I think it's important to have my own goals, I said firmly. My grandfather always taught me. Yes, your grandfather. Victoria cut in again. Such a shame about his passing. Though I must say, the inheritance situation seems rather unusual. My fork clattered against my plate. Excuse me? Well, word gets around in our circles, dear. A conditional inheritance? It seems rather cruel to make you jump through hoops like some circus performer. The room went silent. I could feel Ben's eyes on me, but I kept my gaze locked on Victoria. My grandfather believed in earning your way, I said quietly. Something about building character. Victoria's laugh was like ice crackling. Character? In our world, dear, it's about connections. Speaking of which, Bennett, didn't you want to tell Cassidy about the country club membership? Ben finally spoke up. Mother, I don't think. We've sponsored you both for membership, Victoria announced. It's essential for our social circle. The wedding announcements will be in their newsletter. I set down my napkin. Actually, I'd prefer to wait on the announcements. With my business expansion. Nonsense. Victoria waved her hand dismissively. Bennett needs to establish himself as a family man for his upcoming promotion. The timing is perfect. Victoria, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I appreciate the gesture, but Ben and I should decide our timeline. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Victoria's smile never wavered, but her eyes hardened. My dear, you seem to be under the impression that you have a say in how the Aldridge family conducts its affairs.
How?
Quaint. Ben's hand found my knee under the table, squeezing in what he probably thought was reassurance. But all I felt was pressure, to conform, to submit, to become another perfectly placed object in Victoria's museum. I stood up slowly. I need some air. As I walked toward the garden, I heard Victoria's voice floating behind me. Really, Bennett, are you sure she's the right fit for our family? In the garden, I pulled out my grandfather's letter, reading it again under the moonlight. The words, your own terms, jumped out at me, and suddenly I understood why he'd set this challenge. Ben found me there, his footsteps hesitant on the gravel path. Cass, you know how Mother can be. She means well. I turned to face him, really seeing him for the first time, the golden boy who'd never had to fight for anything in his life. Does she, Ben? Does she really? He ran a hand through his hair, looking lost. Just
give it time.
Things will settle once we're married. But as I watched him standing there, unable to defend me, unable to stand up to his mother, I realized something that sent a chill down my spine. Things wouldn't settle. They would get worse. And my grandfather's challenge wasn't just about proving myself to others, it was about proving to myself that I deserved better than this. The email from Felix Moreno arrived just as I was trying to salvage what was left of my morning. 3 potential investors had already backed out of meetings with my boutique, all citing scheduling conflicts.
Right.
Interesting timing, I muttered, clicking open the message. Felix was a legend in the fashion industry, known for turning small brands into empire-level successes. Why would he be reaching out to me? I've been watching your work, his email read. Coffee? Today at 2. I was about to reply when my phone buzzed with a text from one of my suppliers. Sorry, but we have to terminate our contract. Nothing personal. Nothing personal.
Right.
Just like the investors' sudden scheduling conflicts weren't personal. Just like Victoria's smug smile at last week's charity luncheon wasn't personal. I dialed Ben's number, my hands shaking. Straight to voicemail. Again. Meeting Felix Moreno. I typed back to the email. Send me the address. The cafe Felix chose was nothing like I expected, no pretension, just a cozy corner spot with mismatched chairs and the smell of fresh coffee. He stood when I approached, his smile genuine beneath salt and pepper hair. "Cassidy Harper," he said, extending his hand. "I've been following your situation with interest." "My situation?" He gestured for me to sit. Small businesses don't usually lose 3 investors and a major supplier in 1 week without reason. Especially not promising ones like yours. "How did you?" "Victoria Aldridge has a lot of influence," he said simply. "But she's not the only one with connections." My coffee cup rattled against its saucer. "You know Victoria?" "I know how she operates. She's trying to squeeze you out, make you dependent on her son's family money." He leaned forward. "Question is, what are you going to do about it?" Before I could answer, my phone lit up with Ben's face. Finally. "Sorry, I need to take this," I said, stepping outside. "Ben." "Cass, where are you? Mother's been trying to reach you about the wedding planner." "Ben, my suppliers just dropped me. All of them."
Did you know anything about this?
A pause. Mother might have mentioned something about protecting the family's interests. The world tilted sideways. Family interests? What about my interests, Ben? My business? Look, maybe Mother's right. The boutique was just a hobby anyway, wasn't it? Once we're married. A hobby? My voice cracked. Is that what you think of my work? Cass, be reasonable. Mother's just looking out for us. She says. Stop.
Just.
Stop. I ended the call, my vision blurring. When I returned to the table, Felix was studying me with knowing eyes. Tough call. Victoria's been blacklisting my business, I said, the words bitter in my mouth. And my fiancé, he's choosing her side. Felix nodded slowly. You know, I knew your grandfather. That stopped me cold. What? Smart man. Taught me a lot about business. And about recognizing potential. He pulled out a folder. I have a proposition for you. A partnership that would put your boutique on the map, completely independent of the Aldridge influence. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. The terms were better than I'd ever dreamed possible. Why? I asked. Why help me? Because talent deserves a chance, he said. And because watching Victoria Aldridge's face when your brand succeeds on its own will be satisfying. My phone buzzed again, Victoria's number this time. I silenced it, thinking of my grandfather's letter, of his challenge to prove myself. There's one condition, Felix added. You can't tell anyone about our partnership. Not yet. Let them think you're failing, let them get comfortable in their victory. Then we'll show them what you're really capable of. I thought about Victoria's smug smile, about Ben's weakness, about all the times I'd swallowed my pride to keep the peace. When do we start? I asked, reaching for the pen. Felix's smile was sharp. We already have. Check your email tonight. You'll find some interesting information about who's really been sabotaging your business. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's having proof. As I signed the contract, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about proving myself anymore. This was about justice, and I was just getting started. The invitation to New York Fashion Week's Emerging Designer Showcase sat on my desk like a bomb waiting to detonate. Felix had pulled strings I didn't even know existed, creating an opportunity that could launch my brand into the stratosphere. The catch? It was the same weekend as Ben's family's annual charity gala. My phone lit up with Ben's message. Mother's furious. Says you're embarrassing the family by skipping the gala. Please don't make this difficult. I was still staring at his text when Felix walked into my studio, his expression grim. You need to see this. He handed me his tablet, open to a society blog. There, in high-resolution glory, was a photo of Victoria having lunch with Marcus Chen, my biggest competitor in the local fashion scene. The same Marcus Chen who'd suddenly started carrying suspiciously similar designs to my upcoming collection. That's not all, Felix said, scrolling down. Look who else was at that lunch. My heart stopped.
Ben.
My fiancé was there, smiling and shaking Marcus's hand. The photos were taken 3 days ago, Felix added quietly. Right after your designs were leaked. The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of my desk, my engagement ring catching the light mockingly. I need to talk to Ben, I managed. Cassidy. He must have an explanation. Ben agreed to meet me at our usual cafe. He was already there when I arrived, fiddling with his watch, the nervous tell I used to find endearing. Mother says you're being unreasonable about the gala, he started before I could speak. It's tradition, Cass. The whole family. I slid Felix's tablet across the table. Ben's face went pale. Want to explain this? It's not what you think, he stammered. Mother suggested I network with Marcus. He's very successful. And the leaked designs? Was that networking too? His silence was deafening. Did you know? I pressed. Did you know what they were planning? Mother said it was for your own good. He finally mumbled. That you needed to focus on being an Aldridge, not chasing pipe dreams. Something inside me shattered. Pipe dreams? Is that what you think of my work? Be realistic, Cass. What's more important, some fashion show or our future? They're the same thing. I stood up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. At least, they should be. You're being dramatic. No, I'm being betrayed. By my fiancé. By the man who's supposed to be my partner. Ben reached for my hand. We can fix this. Just apologize to Mother. Attend the gala? I yanked my hand away. And what about my show? My designs that your mother helped steal. They're just clothes, Cass. For words. That's all it took to make everything crystallize. My phone buzzed. Felix sending the final confirmation for New York. I needed to decide now. The showcase or the gala. My dreams or Ben's family. My future or their version of it. I have to go, I said, gathering my things. I have a meeting about those, just clothes. Cass, wait. But I was already walking away, my mind racing with possibilities. Victoria thought she'd backed me into a corner, but she'd forgotten something crucial. Cornered animals fight back. Back at the studio, Felix was waiting. Well, how much time do we have to create a new collection? He raised an eyebrow. 3 weeks until New York. It's impossible. I thought about my grandfather's letter about proving my worth. About Ben's betrayal and Victoria's smug certainty that I'd fall in line. Nothing's impossible, I said, pulling out my sketchbook. And I want to make damn sure that when Victoria sees these designs on the runway, she knows exactly what she tried to steal. Felix's slow smile was all the answer I needed. I'll make some calls. But Cassidy, this isn't just about proving yourself anymore. This is war. I looked down at my engagement ring, then slowly slipped it off. No, this is justice. And I'm just getting started. The engagement party at the Aldridge mansion felt like a carefully orchestrated trap. Every crystal glass, every perfectly arranged flower screamed Victoria's influence. I stood in the corner, watching Ben work the room, wondering how I'd let things get this far. Darling, there you are. Victoria's voice cut through my thoughts. She gripped my arm, steering me toward a group of society women. Ladies, this is Bennett's
Fiancé.
The pause before fiancé was deliberate, just like everything else Victoria did. We heard about your little fashion venture. One woman said, pearl necklace gleaming. Such a shame about the copy designs. My champagne glass froze halfway to my lips. Excuse me? Oh, didn't you know? Victoria's smile was razor sharp. Marcus Chen's new collection is causing quite a stir. Some say it's remarkably similar to certain amateur sketches. The room suddenly felt too small. I searched for Ben, finding him deep in conversation with Marcus Chen himself. They were laughing. If you'll excuse me, I managed, but Victoria's grip tightened. Actually, I have an announcement to make. She clinked her glass, drawing everyone's attention. Bennett and Cassidy have agreed to move up the wedding. Next month, in fact. The room erupted in polite applause. I stood there, stunned. We hadn't agreed to anything. Mother, Ben appeared beside us. We haven't. Nonsense, darling. The arrangements are all made. The country club is perfect in spring, and this way, Cassidy can focus on being a proper Aldridge wife instead of these distractions. The word hung in the air like poison. I felt dozens of eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. This was Victoria's power play. Back down or cause a scene. Actually, I heard myself say, I have an announcement too. Victoria's smile flickered. Ben touched my arm. Cass, don't. My new collection will be debuting at New York Fashion Week. The words fell like bombs in the silent room. The one Marcus Chin didn't manage to steal. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Victoria's face hardened. How dare you accuse? I have proof. I pulled out my phone, bringing up the photos Felix had gathered. Interesting lunch meeting you all had last week. Did you really think no one would notice? This is hardly the time or place, Victoria hissed. You're right. I turned to the crowd. The time was before you tried to destroy my business. The place was anywhere but here, where you planned to announce my wedding date without even asking me. Ben stepped forward. Cassidy, you're embarrassing yourself.
No, Ben.
For once, I'm standing up for myself. I slipped off my engagement ring. I won't let your mother dictate my life or steal my dreams. Victoria's laugh was cold. Dreams? You think a few dresses make you special? Without the Aldridge name, you're nothing. That's where you're wrong. I held up my grandfather's letter. I'm a Harper, and we build our own legacy. The room was dead silent as I walked toward the door. Ben called after me. Cass, wait. We can fix this. I turned back one last time. There's nothing to fix, Ben. Your mother wanted me to choose between my dreams and your family. So I'm choosing. You'll regret this, Victoria called out. I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. I smiled, thinking of the collection hidden in my studio, of Felix's connections, of my grandfather's words about proving my worth.
No, Victoria.
You'll regret underestimating me. Outside, the night air felt like freedom. My phone buzzed, a message from Felix. Buyers confirmed for the show. Ready to make history? I took one last look at the mansion, at the life I thought I wanted, at the cage Victoria had tried to build around me. Then I typed back, time to show them what a Harper can do. As I drove away, I realized something. Revenge wasn't about destroying Victoria. It was about becoming everything she said I couldn't be. And I was just getting started. The real war would begin in New York, and this time, I had nothing left to lose. The annual charity gala buzzed with whispers as I walked in. 3 months of work, sleepless nights, and Felix's guidance had transformed my small boutique into a rising star. Tonight was supposed to be my triumph, my first major donation as a successful businesswoman. Instead, Victoria was already holding court near the stage, Marcus Chun at her side. Cassidy Harper, she announced loudly as I passed. How brave of you to show up, considering the circumstances. I kept walking, but her voice carried. Did you hear about the plagiarism accusations? Apparently, she stole designs from poor Marcus here. Felix appeared at my elbow, steady as always. Remember the plan. Let her talk. She's turning everything around, I whispered, making me look like the thief. That's what cornered animals do. They lash out. The donation ceremony began. I watched as Victoria took the stage, Ben beside her, both radiating old money confidence. The Aldridge family is proud to announce a $100,000 donation, Victoria declared. Then her eyes found mine. Unlike some who try to buy their way into society with suspicious funds, the room went silent. I felt dozens of eyes turn to me. What is she talking about? Someone whispered. Victoria's smile was venomous. Oh, didn't everyone know? Miss Harper's sudden success came right after breaking things off with my son. Quite convenient timing, wouldn't you say? Using poor Bennett's investment to fund her adventures. My hands shook as I stood. That's a lie. Is it? Victoria produced a document. These bank transfers suggest otherwise. Felix grabbed my arm. Don't. But I was already moving toward the stage. Ben wouldn't meet my eyes as I passed him. Those transfers, I said, my voice carrying across the silent room, were reversed. By your son, after he and your husband tried to sabotage my business. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Victoria's smile never wavered. Such accusations. But then we expected this sort of common behavior. After all, what else could we expect from someone who what? I pulled out my grandfather's letter. Someone who earned their success instead of marrying into it. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Security, please remove.
No.
I turned to face the crowd. You all want to know where my money came from? Here's the truth. I unfolded the letter, but before I could read it, Ben stepped forward. Cass, don't do this. Why not? Afraid everyone will learn how your family operates.
No.
His voice was quiet. Afraid they'll learn how you operate. Show them the rest of the letter, Cass. The part about the conditions. My blood ran cold. What? Victoria's smile widened. Oh yes, do share. About how your grandfather's inheritance required you to marry into a prominent family. How you used my son to fulfill those conditions. The letter trembled in my hands. That's not the full letter, Miss Harper. Victoria produced another document, which my private investigators so helpfully obtained from your grandfather's lawyer. The room spun as I read the second page, the page I'd never seen. My grandfather's words burned into my brain. Marriage into a family of suitable standing will prove you understand the value of strategic alliances. No, I whispered. Yes, Victoria purred. You played the game just as calculated as anyone. The only difference is you lost. I looked at Felix, saw the shock on his face. All our plans, all our work. The donation committee, Victoria announced, might want to reconsider accepting funds from someone who built their success on manipulation and lies. The whispers grew louder. I watched as everything I'd built began crumbling around me. Cass, Felix murmured, we need to go. But I stood frozen, watching Ben avoid my gaze, seeing Victoria's triumph, feeling my grandfather's legacy twist into something ugly and false. As security approached, I realized the true depth of Victoria's revenge. She hadn't just attacked my business or my reputation. She destroyed the one thing I thought I could trust, my grandfather's faith in me. The worst part? I didn't know anymore if she was wrong about me after all. I found Ben waiting outside my apartment, leaning against his car in the rain. 3 days had passed since the gala, and my phone hadn't stopped ringing with cancellations from buyers and suppliers. You shouldn't be here, I said, fumbling with my keys. Mother went too far. His voice was quiet. I came to fix things. I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. Fix things? Like you fixed them when she stole my designs? Or when she destroyed my reputation? I didn't know about the letter. He stepped closer. About your grandfather's conditions. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know either. The key finally slid home. But it doesn't matter anymore, does it? Your mother won. Game over. It doesn't have to be. He caught the door before I could close it. We could still make this work. Get married. Fulfill the conditions. You'd get your inheritance and Mother would. Would what?
Accept me?
Stop trying to destroy everything I've built. She's just protecting the family name. The words hit like a slap. I stepped back, really looking at him. This man I'd thought I loved, who'd never once chosen me over his mother's expectations. You still don't get it, do you? I whispered. This was never about the money or the inheritance. It was about proving I could succeed on my own terms. But you don't have to. Why can't you just what? Be the perfect Aldridge wife? Give up my dreams? Become another trophy in your mother's collection? His silence was answer enough. Get out, Cass. I said get out. I started throwing his things into boxes. The expensive watch he'd left on my dresser, designer clothes that had slowly migrated into my closet, photos of us at charity events where I'd tried so hard to fit in. What are you doing? He grabbed my arm. I yanked away. Exactly what I should have done months ago. Choosing myself. You're being dramatic. No, I'm being honest. Finally, I shoved a box into his chest. Your mother didn't just try to destroy my business, Ben. She tried to destroy who I am. And you let her. I tried to protect you. By staying silent, by watching her tear me down. My voice cracked. That's not protection. That's cowardice. The word hung between us like a blade. Take your things and go, I said quietly. Go back to your perfect family and your perfect life. I'm done trying to fit into it. This is crazy. You're throwing away everything.
No.
I pulled out my phone, showing him the email I'd received that morning. I'm choosing everything. Felix just confirmed 3 major retailers want to carry my designs. The real ones, not the copies your mother helped steal. His face paled. But the scandal actually helped. Turns out people love an underdog story, especially when there's proof of corporate theft. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I met his eyes. Your mother taught me well, Ben. Sometimes you have to be willing to burn it all down to build something better. He stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. Maybe he was. Mother was right about you, he said finally. You never belonged in our world. No, I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. I belonged in something better. I just forgot that for a while. After he left, I sat in my empty apartment, looking at the chaos of boxes and memories. My phone buzzed, a text from Felix. Ready to show them what real success looks like? I thought about my grandfather's letter, about Victoria's smug certainty, about Ben's weakness. Then I thought about my mother's strength, Felix's faith in me, and my own forgotten dreams. Time to write my own story, I texted back. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about becoming exactly who they said you couldn't be. And I was just getting started. 1 year to the day after finding my grandfather's letter, I stood in his study again. The room felt different now, lighter somehow, as if the weight of expectations had finally lifted. Ready? Mom asked, holding up an envelope from my grandfather's lawyer. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind. My collection had launched at Fashion Week, earning critical acclaim and major retail contracts. Meanwhile, the Aldridge empire had stumbled after evidence of their design theft went public. Ben had resigned in disgrace, and Victoria's social standing had crumbled. I hadn't planned any of it. Sometimes karma writes better revenge stories than we ever could. Open it, Felix urged from a spot by the window. He'd become more than a mentor. He was family now. The letter inside wasn't what I expected. My dearest Cassidy, if you're reading this, you've completed your challenge, though perhaps not in the way I originally intended. The marriage clause was never meant to be revealed. It was Victoria Aldridge who added that page, using her connections to alter my wishes after my death. But you found your own path anyway, just as I knew you would. Your inheritance isn't just money, Cassidy. It's the truth about your strength. Sometimes we need to lose everything to discover what we're truly worth. The Harper fortune is yours, but you've already claimed something far more valuable, your independence. With pride, grandfather. I looked up at Mom, who was smiling through tears. He knew, she said softly. He knew Victoria would try to manipulate the situation. That's why he left the original letter with me. She pulled out another envelope, weathered and sealed. Inside was the real second page, no marriage clause, just a simple message. Trust yourself. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because you needed to choose your path without knowing, just like I did when I left your father. The parallel hit me hard. Mom had walked away from wealth and security too, choosing independence over a gilded cage. Felix cleared his throat. Speaking of choices, there's something else you should know. He handed me a newspaper. This is running tomorrow. The headline made my breath catch. Aldridge Corp CEO steps down amid scandal. Victoria Aldridge admits to years of corporate espionage. She confessed. I whispered. Not out of guilt, Felix said. Ben threatened to expose everything if she didn't step down. Apparently, he finally found his spine. Too late, I murmured, but without bitterness. That chapter was closed. My phone buzzed, a message from Ben. You were right. About everything. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. I didn't reply. Some answers are better left unspoken. So what now? Mom asked, watching me carefully. I walked to my grandfather's desk, running my fingers over the worn wood where he'd built his own empire.
Now?
I build something new. Something that's purely mine. Already ahead of you. Felix grinned, pulling out another folder. 3 international retailers want exclusive collections. And that fashion institute you mentioned? The board loves the idea of sponsoring scholarships for young designers. I smiled, thinking of other dreamers like me, fighting for their chance. You know, Mom said, your grandfather always said success wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right. He was right about that too. I picked up his old nameplate, then set it down again. But sometimes proving yourself right means walking away from what others think you should want. Felix raised an eyebrow. Even with the inheritance? Especially with it. Money's just a tool. The real inheritance was learning to trust myself. As we left the study, I took one last look around. The room no longer felt like a museum of expectations. It was just a room where one story had ended and another had begun. My phone buzzed again. Victoria's number. I declined the call without hesitation. Some people never change, but that's their burden to bear, not mine. I had my own legacy to build now, and it had nothing to do with revenge or proving my worth to others. It was simply about being true to myself. Sometimes that's the greatest victory of all. Greatest victory of all. Greatest victory of all. Greatest victory of all. Greatest victory.